Hello, sweet friends. Welcome to my kitchen. Hopefully the sound is okay, but I thought we would do a writing lesson today about letters. So, a book that I want to share with you first is called Dear Mr. Blueberry. Now, here's our character right here. Mr. Blueberry, this is Emily. Mr. Blueberry is her teacher. And Emily has a problem, and so she is writing her teacher letters to try to solve her problem. So let's see what her problem is. Dear Mr. Blueberry by Simon James. Get to the right page here in a second. Dear Mr. Blueberry, do you notice how it starts with dear? I love whales very much, and I think I saw one in my pond today. Please send me some information on whales, as I think he might be hurt. Love, Emily. So look, here's her letter on this side. And look at that pond. Do you see a whale in there? Now think about what you know about whales. Do whales usually live in a pond? How big are whales? See what Mr. Blueberry says when he writes back. Dear Emily, do you see how he starts with dear? Here are some details about whales. I don't think you'll find it was a whale you saw because whales don't live in ponds, but they live in salt water. Yours sincerely, your teacher, Mr. Blueberry. So here's his letter. Now look, here's Emily eating her breakfast. Oh goodness, still said there's a baby in the house. So Mr. Blueberry says, Emily, whales live in salt water, not in your pond. So maybe check again. So Emily writes back, Dear Mr. Blueberry, I am now putting salt into the pond every day before breakfast. And last night, I saw my whale smile. I think he is feeling better. Do you think he might be lost? Love, Emily. So look, here she is salting the pond because he said whales live in salt water. Now, if a whale was lost, how would it end up in her pond? Do they have legs? Can they walk on land? Let's see what her teacher says. Dear Emily, please don't put any more salt in the pond. I'm sure your parents won't be pleased. I'm afraid there can't be a whale in your pond because whales don't get lost. They always know where they are in the oceans. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. So her teacher is telling her, no, whales don't normally get lost. Do you see how they have a mail slot in their door and the mail comes through? So she has the letter right here that she's reading. My guess is that's her dad. And here's the letter that he wrote. He's like, I really don't think there's a whale, Emily. He's just not really sure. So let's see what she writes back to Mr. Blueberry. Dear Mr. Blueberry, tonight I am very happy because I saw my whale jump up and spurt lots of water. He looked blue. Does this mean he might be a blue whale? Love, Emily. P.S. What can I feed him? So, P.S. is something that you might think of at the end of your letter. It stands for postscript. That means after I write, I wanted to write a little bit more. So that's what P.S. stands for. So she was like, I saw him. It was very exciting, and he spurted water, and I think he feels much better. Oh, by the way, which is her P.S., what do you feed a whale? What do blue whales eat? Aren't blue whales the biggest animal on our planet that we know of? How is that in her pond? Let's see what she thinks it looks like. Look, there he is. Do you see him spurting water out? Oh my goodness, how is he in that little pond? It must be awfully deep, don't you think? And there's her letter. What do you think Mr. Blueberry's going to write back? What do you say to someone who is convinced that there is a blue whale living in their pond? Let's see what he says. Dear Emily, blue whales are blue, and they eat tiny, shrimp-like creatures that live in the sea, called krill. However, I must tell you that a blue whale is much too big to live in your pond. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. P.S. Postscript. Perhaps it is a goldfish? So look, Emily is reading a book about goldfish to see if that is accurate. But are goldfish blue? Not normally. But he did write back and say, hey, this is what they eat. So let's see what happens. Emily writes, Dear Mr. Blueberry, last night I read your letter to my whale. Afterward, he let me stroke his head. It was very exciting. I secretly took him some crunched up cornflakes and breadcrumbs. This morning I looked in the pond and they were all gone. I think I shall call him Arthur. What do you think? Love, Emily. So instead of shrimp-like creatures or krill, she didn't have any of those at her house. Do you have krill at your house? Probably not. So she decided in the book for goldfish, one thing you can feed goldfish is crunched up cornflakes or breadcrumbs if you don't have goldfish food. So that's what she sprinkled on top of the water. And she said it was all gone. Does that mean that the whale ate them? Or maybe a bird came by and ate them off the top of the water? It's hard to know. But here she is, petting his head. What do you think Mr. Blueberry is going to write back? Do you think he's just going to say, I don't know, Emily. It's not a whale, honey. Let's see what he says. Dear Emily, I must point out to you quite forcibly now that in no way could a whale live in your pond. You may not know that whales are migratory, which means they travel great distances every day. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. So Mr. Blueberry has realized that Emily is not giving up this idea of a whale in her pond. That's why he says quite forcibly, he's like, I am just going to straight out tell you, it's not possible. Whales do not stay in one place. They move all the time. So there's no possible way a whale is living in your pond. I am so sorry. So look, here she is walking and reading her letter from Mr. Blueberry. Let's see what Emily writes back. Dear Mr. Blueberry, tonight I'm a little sad. Arthur has gone. I think your letter made sense to him, and he has decided to be migratory again. Love, Emily. So here's her pond. Do you see Arthur there anymore? She's writing back. Do you think it was Mr. Blueberry's letter that made Arthur realize that he needed to go back to the ocean? Let's see what happens. Dear Emily, please don't be too sad. It really was impossible for a whale to live in your pond. Perhaps when you are older, you would like to sail the oceans, studying and protecting whales. Yours sincerely, Mr. Blueberry. So he wrote her back, and look, she had drawn a picture of Arthur. He's like, it's not possible, but when you grow up, you could go out into the ocean and study whales and learn more about them, right? That's always a choice. So Emily writes back, Dear Mr. Blueberry, it's been the happiest day. I went to the beach, and you'll never guess, but I saw Arthur. I called to him, and he smiled. I knew it was Arthur because he let me stroke his head. I gave him some of my sandwich. So look, there she is at the beach. Now, do you think this is possible? Typically, whales don't get that close to the land because they can get stuck in the sand because they're so heavy. This is the rest of Emily's letter. I gave him some of my sandwich, and then we said goodbye. I shouted that I loved him very much, and I hope you don't mind. I said you loved him too. Love, Emily and Arthur. Look, there he goes. She's waving to him. So she signed it for both of them. She wrote it, but she signed Arthur's name too. The end. So that's the end of our story. Now, this is obviously a fiction book. Or maybe this little girl just really wanted there to be a whale in the pond of her house, and so she used her imagination to create it. But in order to gather information, she wrote her teacher letters back and forth, asking different questions and getting explanations. So, in your packet, or if you don't have one and you're just watching this because you want to learn how to write a letter, you'll need to get a piece of paper and you'll need to get something to write with. I have a black marker, but you can get what you need. If you received a packet from me, then we are going to work on this paper right here. Okay? So, I'm going to put this down. I'm going to lean you down so you're not really going to be able to see me. I think you should be able to see the paper. Okay? All right. So, up here at the top, there's an arrow and it says greeting. Do you remember how Emily and Mr. Blueberry always wrote dear? Dear Emily, dear Mr. Blueberry. Okay? Oftentimes when we start letters, we either start with the person's name, or if you want to be extra polite, we start with the word dear. Okay? So, on my line, I am going to write, sorry, you're back here. I'm going to write dear. So I'm going to turn it this way so I can see. So dear, if you don't know, is capital D-E-A-R. You may want to write that somewhere so you can remember. So dear, and then you're going to write someone's name. So many of you might know, my puppy is at the doctor because he is sick. So I'm going to write my dog. I'm going to write my dog a letter. Now you can write your letter to someone in your house today for good practice. So I'm going to write Dear Scruffy. So I'm going to write Scruffy's name, capital S because his name's important. C-R-U-F-Y. Okay, so you may not be able to write as small. If you need to write a little bit past the line, that's fine. But it says Dear Scruffy. Yours might say Dear Mom, Dear Dad, Dear your brother, Dear Grandma, Dear neighbor, dear friend, whoever you're writing to. But dear that person. Now, if you notice there's a little mark here. If you went a little beyond this, you may not be able to see it, but that's called a comma. So after you write dear and the person's name, you're going to write a little comma, and a comma hangs below the line. That means that you're not done talking. Okay? Dear Mom or Dear Scruffy is not a sentence. Okay? It's just the entry or the greeting of the letter. Okay? Now, you're going to notice there's a line on this side that says D-A-T-E. Now, if you've been in kindergarten, you know we always write our date at the top of our paper on that side. So we're going to write the date. And let's see. My date today, let's look at my watch, is, April 15th. April is the 4th month. So I'm going to write 4-15, which is 1-5, dash, and it's 2020. So we're going to write 20. Okay, so when you write a new letter, the date is going to be different. So you will need to know the date. So you will put your date and then dear whoever. Now, all these lines right here, this is called the body of your letter. Okay, your body, there's more of your body than anything else. So when you write a letter, that's where most of your writing is going to happen. This is when you write, like Emily did to her teacher, about whales. But obviously, I am not going to write to my dog about whales. Just like you may not write to your dad or your brother or your grandma about whales. So you will pick something that you want to write to them about. So for me, Dear Scruffy, I'm going to say, how are you? How, space, are, space, you. Now I asked a question, so I'm going to put a question mark. How are you? Space, I know, space, you, space, have, space, been, space, feeling, ing, feeling. I know you have been feeling, not, space, so, space, well. Because he really hasn't. He's been feeling kind of cruddy, right? So here's what I have so far. So, Dear Scruffy, how are you? Question mark. I know you have been feeling not so well. Space. It, space, is, space, quiet. space, in, space, the, space, house, space, without is one word, without, space, without you, space, here, space, period, without you here. I, space, hope, space, the, space, doctor, space, is, space, making, ing, making, space, you, space, feel, space, better. Okay, so here's what I have so far, right? So, dear Scruffy, how are you? I know you have been feeling not so well. It is, sorry, I can't read backwards. It is quiet in the house without you here. I hope the doctor is making you feel better, because he has to stay at the doggy hospital right now until they can figure out how to make him feel better. I hope the doctor is making you feel better. Space, I, space, miss, space, you. Okay? Now, if you have more to write than what is on here, you can always turn it over on the back and add more to your letter. Okay? If you are going to write a friend, you might say, Dear friend, how are you? What have you been doing at home? I have been playing with Legos and reading books and talking with my mom and dad. Have you read any good books lately? I hope to talk to you soon, right? Because you want your friend to write back to you. So now Scruffy won't be able to write back to me because he is a dog. But it will be fun. So for when he gets home, I can say, look, I thought about you and I wanted to read this to you. Now, at the bottom of your letter, you have 2 short lines, right? This is your closing. Do you remember in our book? Let's look at Emily's first letter that she wrote to Mr. Blueberry. She signed it, Love, Emily, right? Love, Emily. Now, Mr. Blueberry signed it, Yours sincerely, your teacher, right? So you have to decide how you want to close your letter. Now, your first short line, you're going to either write, I like to write love, or best wishes, or see you soon, things that are kind of short. So, dear Scruffy, how are you? I know you've been feeling not so well. It is quiet in the house without you here. I hope the doctor is making you feel better. I miss you. And then I'm going to choose to write love, Love, at the bottom of my letter. See where I wrote love? Okay. Now, do you remember that comma we talked about up here at the top that you put after dear and the person's name? Okay. That goes after you write your closing. Love. Or you might write your daughter, comma, your son, comma. Okay. All the best, comma. I love you, comma. Okay. And then the very last line at the bottom, it says signature. Your signature is just maybe a fancy way to write your name. Now, you do have to be able to read it. So I would just write love, and then I would write my name because I'm the person who wrote the letter, right? That's why you don't write your name at the top of your letter. Normally, when we do writing, you write your name at the top. This time, with letter writing, your name goes at the bottom, okay? Love, Miss Curry. That's not what he knows me as, but that's what we're going to write, okay? So, here is my letter. Okay, love, and then your name goes at the bottom. Now, if you were going to give this to someone, then you would probably want to fold it up, kind of like it's a secret. If you're going to mail it, it has to go in an envelope with a stamp, and we will talk about that later. But right now, it's really good to just practice getting used to writing letters. Letters do not have to be very long unless you have a lot to talk about. Some of Emily's letters to Mr. Blueberry were kind of short, but do you remember the last one? We had to turn the page to read the rest. Sometimes in your letter, you might tell the person good things about them. So like if you're writing your dad, you might say, Dear Dad, how are you? How is work going? I really like when you cook dinner. You're a great storyteller. Thank you for playing outside with me, right? So you want to tell them good things about them. If you were to write a friend to mail that's in our class, like the friend that wrote me a letter and mailed it to me, which is so exciting, and I need to write them back today, you would just say, so what have you been doing? And then tell them some things that you've been up to. Ask them a few questions. Have you played outside? Have you played with your sister? Have you played with your brother? If they have a pet, ask about their pet, right? Things like that. And just checking up on them. So it's fun to write letters back and forth. Now, I know a lot of you are like, well, my parents write email. Sure, email is a great way to send electronic letters, but you're still writing them the same way. When you type an email or you send a letter on the computer, you still start with dear and that person's name. Then you come to the next line and you type the body of your letter. And then at the bottom, you type your name to sign it. So whether you're using a paper letter or you're typing it on the computer, either way, the format is the same. So it's good practice to get used to writing it this way in order to be able to write letters. Okay, so think about Emily and Mr. Blueberry. Practice writing a letter today. Okay, if you're having a hard time thinking of things to put in your letter, ask someone at home, what would you put in a letter? Now, does that mean mom, dad, brother, sister, grandma, grandpa are going to write the letter for you? No. People don't want letters that are written by someone else. They want letters written from you. So use your best handwriting and write the best you can. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope you send some letters soon. And I hope you enjoyed Dear Mr. Blueberry. I always enjoy this one for letter writing. Emily and her whale. What more can you say, right? So, give your practice letter a try today, or maybe you did yesterday. And if you did, then you can start on another piece. Now, the rest of your paper that I sent you does not have the arrows. But again, you write your date first. Dear, the person's name. Here's your body. Here's your closing. Love from your son, your daughter, what have you. And then your name goes at the very bottom as your signature. Okay? I hope you found this helpful. If you want to, send some letters my way, and I will send some letters back your way. But I hope you have fun writing letters. It's always fun. You can even write them to people in your house, and then you don't have to wait for a long reply. Okay? They can just write you back really soon and pass it to you. So, letters are a lot of fun to talk to people when you can't necessarily use your voice to talk to them at the time. So, happy letter writing, and I will talk to you all again soon. I hope you enjoyed being in my kitchen. I will talk to you later. Bye.